Welcome back to Theme 2, Rights and Responsibilities of the AQA GCSE Citizenship course. We're looking at rights and responsibilities within the legal system, particularly what are the police powers. We've already looked at what the key words are to remember and the structure of the police force, including roles and ranks. We've also looked at the difference between the Metropolitan Police, City of London Police and Police and Crime Commissioners. We're now going to look at the Police and Criminal Evidence Act of 1984. What is the Police and Criminal Evidence Act? In short, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act of 1984 contains codes of practice to regulate police powers and protect the public's rights. The codes of practice cover stop and search, arrest, detention, investigation, identification, and interviewing detainees. Also, part of this legislation is the PACE Codes of Practice, which gives police officers guidance when making a decision on a suspect. The Act attempts to strike a fair balance between the practice of their powers by those in authority and the rights of the members of the public. What this means is that the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, although it outlines the role and the powers of police, it also provides guidance on how police officers should carry out their powers, so that police cannot abuse those powers and the respect for public's rights are upheld. Here are some police powers that are set out in the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. Police have a legal responsibility to uphold the law and protect people from crime. They also have the legal responsibility to record crimes that are reported to them. They investigate most crimes reported. They have the legal right to stop and search someone in connection with a crime. They also have the legal right to charge someone with a criminal offence. A responsibility refers to a duty that should be carried out. A right refers to a freedom or an entitlement that one gets. Often rights and responsibilities are linked and related. We have just completed the part of this session where we look at the Police and Criminal Evidence Act of 1984. We're now going to look at the powers of the police through certain scenarios and activities. Here's a summary of stop and search powers of the police. It also covers the rights that the public have under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act when being stopped and searched. What we're going to do is look at this scenario and apply it to the powers of the police and the rights of the public in regards to stop and search. I was walking down the street when a police community support officer in uniform approached me and asked me what my name was and where I was going. She said there was an incident that occurred around the area and that she would need to search me in order to find out if I had a weapon on me. She informed me that it is within the power of the police to search an individual and that I could get a copy of the search record. Malika then asked me to take off my coat and my shirt so that the top half of my body was naked. She then asked me to remove my shoes and my hat. We're going to be looking at the stop and search powers of the police and whether this police officer abused their power. So what I do is usually read it sentence by sentence and apply it to the information that is provided. So I was walking down the street when a police community support officer in uniform approached me and asked me what my name was and where I was going. So let's look at general information. As you can see here, PCSOs can stop you. They can stop you and question you. However, they cannot actually stop and search you. But they must be in uniform when they stop and question you. And this police community support officer was in uniform. However, other police officers do not always have to be in uniform, but if they're not in uniform, they must show you their warrant card. She said her name was Malika Jones. She said there was an incident that occurred around the area and that she would need to search me in order to find out if I had a weapon on me. As mentioned earlier, PCSOs can stop, but they cannot search people. They can only question them once they've stopped them. The PCSO, Malika Jones, stated that there was an incident that occurred and that she would need to stop and search the individual to find out if they had a weapon on them. At the moment, she hasn't breached any of her powers because she is allowed to stop and question anyone at any given time. However, we know that she goes on to search this individual and therefore she is abusing the rights of the citizen. If Malika Jones was not a PCSO and instead she was a regular police officer and therefore did have the right to stop and search, not just stop and question, here are some of the powers she would have before the stop and search takes place. First, police officers must stop and question. They may ask your name, what you're doing in the area, where you're going. The police must tell you their name and police station. So she's mentioned her name. She said her name was Malika Jones. She has not mentioned the police station. She has mentioned what they expect to find. So she referred to the weapon. She's explained the reason she wants to search her due to the incident in the area. If we carry on reading, it says, she informed me that it is within the power of the police to search an individual and that I could get a copy of the search record. So Malika Jones has explained why they're legally allowed to search you and has also said that you can have a record of the search and if this isn't possible at the time, how you can get a copy. So she hasn't really breached her powers so far. Let's see if she's breached her powers since the stop and search has begun. Malaika then asked me to take off my coat and my shirt so that the top half of my body was naked. She then asked me to remove my shoes and my hat. During a stop and search, a police officer has powers to stop and search you if they have reasonable grounds to suspect you're carrying illegal drugs, a weapon, stolen property, something which could be used to commit a crime, such as a crowbar. So she's searching for a weapon under this bullet point. There is reasonable ground because the incident did take place locally and this individual may fit the profile. Here it says you can also be stopped and searched if a police officer believes that serious violence could take place, you're carrying a weapon or have used one, or you're in a specific location or area. In terms of removal of clothes, a police officer can ask you to take off your coat, jacket or gloves. The police might ask you to take off other clothes and anything you're wearing for religious reasons, for example a veil or turban. If they do, they must take you somewhere out of public view. If the officer wants to remove more than a jacket and gloves, they must be the same sex as you. So firstly, Malaika Jones is a female. We're not quite sure if this individual is a male or a female, so we don't know whether she is abusing her powers over here. The police officer has asked this individual to take more than just their coat, jacket or gloves off. They've asked this individual to take shoes and hat off, and the person is left with the top half of their body naked because they've also been asked to take their shirt off. It doesn't seem like this person's been taken into a private space. This has not been mentioned here. So we can assume that Malaika Jones, the police officer, has not carried out the stop and search lawfully, as the individual has not been taken to a private space. And therefore, the police officer has abused their powers and breached the rights of the citizen. Now there's a few police powers that I've provided information on. Search property and seize possessions, power to detain a suspect, power to arrest. If you want, you can look through the scenarios and do the activities yourself. Alternatively, you just need to have a sort of general knowledge of the different powers that police have and one or two bits of information about those different powers. Here's a scenario and some information on the police's power to arrest. Here's a scenario and some information on the police's power to detain a suspect. Here's a scenario and some information on the police's power to search property and seize possessions. Please feel free to pause the video at any point to do the activities or to have a read of some of the information. Again, you do not need to know all of it in detail. You just need to know some police powers and you need to know maybe one or two bits of information about each power. We've come to the end of this part of session 3. In the next video, you'll be looking at case studies involving Stephen Lawrence, the Hillsborough case and the Guildford 4.